Well, welcome back into the Mid-Norfolk garden. We're going to talk to you a little about hollyhocks in this video. If you've watched any of our previous videos, you know we love growing hollyhocks here in this really sheltered gravel courtyard. And this clump that's been established over the last 2 years in front of one of the new barns we've done is looking very good and promising this year. However, there are some problems afoot. The mild and wet spring has in part been good for the growth of these plants. But dear oh dear, just look at this. It has also been a superb season for the rust. And this is hollyhock rust. These little orange bobbles, almost, they always remind me of the little scale insects that are on lemon trees that we grow and do videos about having to pick off. But these aren't pick-offable, these are actually scars within the leaf. And you can see what happens with this. It weakens the plants and eventually these leaves will all shrivel and die. The fresh leaves up the top aren't nearly as badly affected, but what we need to do, and quite quickly, is try and reduce the volume of rust on these plants by taking off those diseased lower leaves, allowing the air to get through, and that gives them the best chance of getting to flowering height. It's going to be a problematic year for hollyhocks, I think, everywhere. It's not just us that's reporting a big amount of hollyhock rust. Now, the other thing you can do to increase your supply of hollyhocks in subsequent seasons is to start looking around the bases of your plants for young specimens growing from seed. Now, we've got all different sizes of plants here. These two have probably overwintered from germinations last year, but coming up in the ground just by the side of them you can see this little seedling just starting to emerge, a smaller one here. Let me see if I can find one just in its embryonic stage with the two first leaves that come out. Here we go. That's a perfect example of the first two leaves you can identify on a seedling of hollyhock. Now, it's best to try and move these quite early on, not at this stage. Let these grow on a little bit. This little one's about ready, but look, this one's already affected by rust. But at the 2 to 3 sets of leaf stage, that's an ideal stage to prick these out and either grow them on in pots or move them into their final flowering area. And our preferred option is to actually allow these to seed naturally and thin them out. That's the ideal situation. But obviously, if you're starting hollyhocks from new, then you're going to have to move some plants. Don't leave it too long because the really deep taproot is very prone to damage, and if that gets broken, then the plant will take an awful long time to get established. Coming back to the rust on these plants, there are chemical treatments that you can use to try and reduce or treat this, but we are not in the chemical treatment camp as far as this is concerned, so our preferred option is to just remove all these damaged leaves, just pull them away from the base. Do not put them in your compost heap because rust is incredibly robust and will just come back in your compost and infect it. Just look at the back of these leaves. You can see why this is going to do the plant very little good in terms of nutrient at all. Really heavy infection with the rust. These need to either be burnt or put into a commercial composting service such as your brown bin in the UK and taken off site. So I'm just going to work my way over this plant, removing a lot of the leaves around the base. This also allows extra air around the plants and that will help, but they will look partially denuded and you will have some bare stems rather than these lovely green clumps of hollyhocks, but that tends to open up naturally during the season anyway. These are already starting to form their flowering spikes. If I come up the top, just look at that, a lovely young bud that's just forming with side buds as well. These are going to be your spikes of hollyhock flower and they're looking very healthy. So by reducing the rust lower down the plant but without taking too much of the foliage off, you'll never get it all, don't expect to. If you cut back to what looks like uninfected leaves, you'll end up with bare stems in most cases. You're just looking at removing the worst of the infected leaves around the bases to let more light and air in. Now, we grow our hollyhocks as part of a mixed sort of cottage garden, self-seeded medley. Particularly in this front area you can see we've got valerian, a lot of oxeye daisies which flower beautifully in this southeastern facing aspect really, but it's quite sheltered, it doesn't get sun apart from first thing in the morning due to the run of the house and the wall on the aspect going up to the gate there. So this is just getting the morning sun now. We've also got a quite mature tree planting just to the west, which again is blocking the morning sun. But these hollyhocks have always done very well here. We've got less coming up on this wall than we've had previously, partly due to the fact that we've had to pare back this little, it's not a border, that looks like a border, but it's just a self-seeded medley in the gravel. And this yard's been heavily used this year with builders' deliveries and all sorts coming in, so it has been tidied up, and an awful lot of the hollyhocks, unfortunately, it's only a short-lived half-hardy perennial. We usually get 3 or 4 years out of them here in Norfolk before they need replacing, and they just naturally die out. This little forget-me-not's looking really good, and the valerian just coming into colour in the bud. That's going to be fantastic combination in here of the red and the white valerian, which mixes beautifully. We've also got a little wild strawberry, well, not wild, a floral decorative strawberry. This looks like the ones Kate's bought and grown in the Vajigas down on a vegetable bed. In terms of lovely pink deep colour, but this one doesn't fruit, it's purely ornamental. There are pink varieties now that they've crossed which actually produce some good quality fruit, and that's what we're growing in those Vajigas down in the vegetable garden. I think this is going to come on quite quickly over the next few weeks. The oxeye daisy always surprises you. Starts very, very slowly, doesn't show much in the way of colour until it suddenly explodes into a carpet of white and yellow flowers. A little bit of lily of the valley here on the back wall. It was much more confluent earlier on. Again, I don't know whether this has been weeded out or it's just been too dry for it over the last couple of summers. It does like a sort of moist, shady aspect. It's just holding its own here around the gate base at this bottom of the wall. It's probably being thugged a little bit by this strawberry, which does tend to run all over and throughout whatever you've got planted in the border. The hollyhocks that are remaining in this aspect are a little behind the sheltered plants in front of that barn, but again, just look, we've got the same problem here with the rust, which again, just going to remove as much of this as I can. Quite heavily infected, the leaves, the older leaves tend to show it most around the base. And if I can take these off, and hopefully it will get a flowering spike coming out and giving us, only going to have 3 or 4 this season on this aspect, so I do want to look at some of the young seedlings, and we have got them coming up here as you can see, and allowing those to grow on. Have to make sure that we make note of where they are and let them grow to give us a better display next year, because with hollyhocks it's all around planning for the following season. Thanks for watching.